Welcome everyone to another episode of Next Gen Entrepreneurs on Reg Athwal TV. Thanks for joining us. I've got a fabulous guest on the show today, dear friend of mine. I've known him for, I'm trying to think now, probably 16 years that we've known each other. We've seen each other's businesses grow over that time. And really, he's relevant not just for Next Gen Entrepreneurs. In fact, he could be on one of the other shows, which is Family Business Legacies and also Family Business Experts. Because Gautam Ganglani, my guest today, has many hats. He's a second generation family business member. A great story that I want to deep dive into with him of how he's built that business with his father. He's got two daughters, and I'm sure he's already thinking about succession plans for the next 15 years. He's an author, he's a speaker, and he runs a very successful business representing some of the best speakers in the world. And he'll tell you more about that. Gautam, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Reg. An absolute pleasure to be with you here today. Thank you.
And joining us from Mumbai in lockdown.
Yes, been in lockdown since March 16th now.
Well, that's why we're online here. That's why I'd love to have done this in person, but technology is the way to go these days. I'm just going to also share very quickly, which is breaking news. Okay, and it links in with the title Breaking Bread. Now, when I first saw this title from a distance, I was thinking of the box series Breaking Bad, right? I don't know whether anybody else has said that to you, but from a distance, that's what I saw. And then obviously I saw the title, and the title says it all. So tell us briefly, this journey of the book, and then we'll get into the past of how this book came about and this whole thing about meaningful relationships. Over to you, Gautam.
Thank you, Reg. Yeah, breaking bread, I mean, in the traditional sense, is to have a meal with someone or a group of people, and you exchange, a good rapport relationship with one another, and you are having a meal, a positive exchange of energy. And that's the foundation of the book. And it inspired me to write this book because I've built my business based on breaking bread with people personally, professionally, in every sense of the word, throughout my career and throughout the business journey that we've had over 25 years. So writing the book to me is really sharing my learnings and sharing true stories of real life examples that I have, experienced myself, and to inspire others to apply the breaking bread philosophy.
Well, it reminds me of a story, and you know the gentleman very well because I was doing an interview with him recently, and we'll be live with that video next week, which was with our dear friend Ali Al Saloom in Abu Dhabi. Yes. And I remember when I first moved to Dubai, and you're one of the first people I met. And shortly after that, I had 7-8 meetings with this Emirati in the U.A.E. And we were talking about business. We were talking about doing something together, but it never really happened until the day I invited him to my home, and we shared food. Okay.
Yes.
Now, I don't know whether we broke bread first. I can't recall. But the point is, we shared food, and then that evening, and we said, let's do business together. We shook hands.
Right.
So it's very powerful, isn't it? This whole concept of whether it's a tea or coffee or having a lunch or dinner.
Yes.
It's been there for centuries.
Absolutely. And I think when you mentioned Ali, who's a mutual dear friend, I mean, to me, one of the commonalities I say is in the Arab culture and the Indian culture or the Asian culture is two commonalities, is family and food. And that's really the foundation of how we've been brought up as a culture, is we brought up with joint families living together. We've been brought up to have a family meal together. And in fact, even on a weekly basis, families come together, if not even daily, but even weekly, where joint families, extended families come together. And to me, having a meal with that cultural experience as well as some of the sort of foundation of how breaking bread initiated as well.
This is good. So when does the book officially launch? Because I mean, I'm privileged to talk about the book before it's even out there. So when's the big date set for your launch?
So actually the book was due to be launched on my birthday, April 17th, which obviously was recently. But once the lockdown took place, I decided to actually add a new chapter to the book. I said, now this has a higher reason now. Why has this lockdown happened? I'm not going to be able to launch the book with Marshall Goldsmith and Ron Kaufman on April 17th in a live event, which was the initial plan. I actually realized that I want to write a new chapter to close the book, to make it even more relevant for people today in this new world that we're living in. So I wrote Breaking Bread in a Virtual World. And that's just been completed and now sent to the publishers. Wonderful. So the book, to me, feels even more relevant to today, that despite being in a virtual world or a hybrid model in the months ahead, Breaking Bread can happen even virtually. So we're going to be launching in May. The date's not been set, but it'll be a digital version. Great. And when we get the chance to publish physically, and we'll have an audio book as well. But in the month of May, we'll be launching a digital version later this month.
That's fantastic. So for our viewers now who are watching this, I'm sure they could wait a month or so to get a copy of the book. For now, can you leave us with a few tips from the book? You know, maybe 2 or 3 tips that you've got in the book, which could add value to our viewers immediately. What would they be when it comes to breaking bread and building meaningful relationships?
Thank you, Reg. Yeah, so first and foremost, I want to make the distinction that whilst breaking bread traditionally means having a meal with one person, another, or a group of people, I want you to consider breaking bread is far deeper than that. So consider it's an energy exchange. So an energy exchange can be done over an email, can be done over social media, can be done in person. Traditionally, yes, over a coffee, a lunch, or a dinner. But once you realize it's an exchange of positive energy between one person or a group of people, and we want to build meaningful relationships that are beyond transactional. So really, we've never had a sales team in our entire business. So to me, when it comes to the book, I share, simple examples of how do you break bread online in terms of acknowledging and appreciating other people online, adding value to other people in your network, personally and professionally. In today's times, I've literally had over 56 phone calls in the last month and a half, calling people just to check how they're doing. It wasn't about business, although there may be business or personal, professional contacts. I just checked how are they doing, how are their families, how are they coping up, if there's anything I can do. That to me is a form of breaking bread. You have added value, you've showed sincerity, you've been authentic, you've given a listening ear. So it's really the emotional exchange and the positive exchange in one person another. When you have that clarity that that's what breaking bread is, you realize you have a chance to break bread every single day with every person you interact with. And if that's something that people can take away, I would say it's not about building powerful relationships. It's about building meaningful relationships. And the key word is meaningful. Meaningful comes from the authenticity of the energy exchange between you and the other person. So that would be some sort of insight that I'd like to sort of give to everyone.
Yeah, I love that. And it reminds me of I don't know where it came from, but someone many years ago said it's a bit like having an emotional bank account, isn't it? Where yes. if you don't put something into the account, you're not going to get anything back out. So putting something in is all about building trust and building relationships. What can I do for others? How can I add value to them from a business point of view, business perspective, before one gets value back? Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's what it's about, isn't it? Even in the Middle Eastern world, there's this concept of wasta, which I'm sure you've come across, where if someone's going to refer you to somebody else, they will not do it unless their own life is on the line, literally. To say, I will introduce you to this person, my life is on the line, that if I'm going to make this introduction, I know that this person's good, okay?
Yes.
They're credible, they're authentic, you can do business with them. But that's probably based on breaking bread with that individual for years before that introduction can be given. And I'm sure you've come across that, yeah?
Yeah, no, I mean, the emotional bank account, my dad used to always say to me, he said, money comes and goes in life. You always have your ups and downs, but the most important bank account is your emotional bank account. And he always said, build relationship capital, focus on those 2 areas. Whatever the economy goes through, when you have relationship capital and a great emotional bank account, you will always be top of mind and a preferred partner in any situation that comes about. So I really, really resonate with that.
Now, I know you've got a lot of energy, so I can hear you banging on the keys and your monitor's moving there, so just calm down, okay? So I know that we also share something in common, actually a huge thing in common we both have, which is our love for books, okay? You can see, partial library of mine behind me. We both have a love for books. We both have a love for knowledge, and that's probably what's also taken us into the field of working with speakers and being speakers ourselves. So can you tell me about the journey of your family business, where, how did it start in terms of your father starting this company, Right Selection, and how you joined as a young man, and as a duo, you've built this business into an international brand. Tell us about the journey, how it started.
Sure. Well, personally, I was born and brought up in London, and that's where we lived as a family in the UK. And my dad at that time was part of a larger family business with his brothers, his uncles, and his father in a joint family business between West Africa and the UK. And that was a traditional Indian business of importing and exporting from the Far East into Africa or Europe. So my education was totally in the UK. When I, at the age of 13, I went to boarding school in the UK, and I went through a difficult time at that time, and I wanted to share this because this becomes relevant to the business that we built. And I went through a difficult time, which is, I sort of say, this is my why I do what I do. And it was that I was bullied, I was teased, I was humiliated, I was made fun of. And I had very few friends around the age of 13, and nothing made any sense. And I went to my dad and I said, my self-esteem is very low. I'm very anxious, very few friends. It looks like I'm an introvert, although I traditionally don't feel I'm one. Nothing, mate. What should I do? And he said, I'm going to give you 3 pieces of advice that's going to help you today and for the rest of your life. I said, please, anything that can guide me to get out of this sort of feeling that I'm going through. And he said, first, surround yourself with the right people. Secondly, continuously learn. And third, and most importantly, is take action. And I realized that that time I fortunately changed schools. A year later, I had a great bunch of friends. My education and my learning improved. My grades were above average. I took action. And in every essence of the world, both personally and professionally, I started being more happy and fulfilled. And I've never looked back. Each one of us goes through a challenge, whether it's financial, relationship, business, health. We all have challenges. In today's economy, people have multiple challenges more than ever before. I shared this story because it puts in context that when I joined, my dad set up the business of Right Selection in October 1993. I joined in 1995. And he said to me, come along, join me for 6 months. And if you like it, you can continue.
And how old were you at the time, Gautam? I mean, when you joined?
I was 21 years. I just graduated from the UK in business and finance from Brunel, joined my dad at the age of 21. And the business was just in its 3rd year when I joined.
So can I ask you, based on all the family businesses that we've worked with with our advisory business, we've got 2 camps here when we ask family businesses, should you have the next gen work outside for 3, 4, 5 years and then join the business, or should you graduate and join the business immediately? What's your views, having been going, you went through that situation of 21 and straight into the family business, couple of years your father's running, and an extra pair of hands has come along and you've helped him literally from a young age, but with no commercial, no business, no entrepreneurial experience.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I guess the missing part of my story is that from the age of 18, my dad encouraged me to work in different businesses during the holidays from the age of 18 to 21. So be it weekends or be it my summer holidays when I had longer time, I would work with friends of his who had different businesses just to sort of be around, listen to the kind of language they're using, familiarize myself with business. So there was some exposure between 18 and 21. And before I joined him in Dubai, he'd actually asked me to take a 6-week trip. So I did 2 weeks in Hong Kong with a family business there, 2 weeks in Singapore and 2 weeks in Indonesia. It was an abridged version of what I would say my dad encouraged me to experience internationally and in different businesses. So you sort of get accustomed to different cultural experiences as well as different businesses and the language. I definitely recommend that. The length of time obviously may depend on the length of experience, but I definitely appeal to saying to get as much experience as you can with different industries and different countries before joining the family business, because that gives you at least a sort of more diverse perspective than just straight into the family business, which can be sort of just slotting into an existing.
I think that's great advice, Gautam. I didn't even know that about you. I've known you all these years. I think that you've hit the nail on the head. there are people out there who, they don't want to work for 3, 4, 5 years. They're hungry. They can add value to their family business straight away. But I totally agree with you. You still got to get some exposure, because if you haven't had exposure dealing with other people in different environments, one could struggle in their family business for a long period of time. So I'm so glad you've said that. And that tells me then, thinking about the maths, your eldest daughter potentially could be in the family business in about 7 years' time then.
Yes, she could be very much so.
So tell me about a few stories of being in the family business. What was the most difficult thing for you in the early years of being in the business? Where did you struggle? Where did you fail? What type of mistakes did you make? What did you learn from?
Well, my dad, when we started out and I said I'd like to join the family business at that time, he said, let's give it 6 months. I want you to see experience it. Don't think that this is your permanent commitment. You're open to starting something of your own. You're open to partnering with someone else. So he gave me that complete freedom. So that sort of brought the barriers down, that you're not joining the family business and I have expectation that you're going to continue this. He sort of gave me the freedom and said, use this that was step number one. And so, those 6 months were invaluable experience with the business. And what I loved about the business, what really engaged me, was you were surrounding yourself with really like-minded and what I call like-hearted people. Because the kind of books that we were doing were books that were helping people transform personally or professionally. They weren't fiction or architecture. So it was a very niche industry. And actually, I remember a front page article in tabloid, the Gulf News in those days, which said, family business, father and son having a self-help business bookstore, because that was the niche. And I really started having lots of great conversations. So it was actually the books that we sold, but actually the conversations with the people who bought the kind of books that we were offering. And that was really uplifting and encouraging. So to me, that first 6 months got me even more excited and inspired that this is something I really would like to grow.
And what do you think you brought to the table that was different to your father's DNA, as I call it, unleashing your DNA? I know Mr. Ram extremely well. He's different character, different personality to you. So what do you feel you brought to the table that allowed this dream team to become more prosperous?
That's a great question. And I think you sort of hit the nail on the head with the question on the different personalities that my dad and myself, who I consider my best friend, not only my dad, my coach, my mentor, my partner in business, but also he realized that my energy levels were completely different. So universally, we had a business and we had a sort of personality of relational, but he was the sort of person who was more cool, collected, composed sort of energy, I guess, maturity and experience. Whereas me, I had that energy and sort of making things happen, bringing people together, that sort of enterprising side of me. And I think the synergy of those two complementing energies is what really made our partnership flourish, that here 27 years later, we are still together. And obviously the business has evolved over those years from the bookstore as well.
So during the 27 years, has there ever been any conflict or arguments, or where you've completely disagreed with each other? And if yes, how did you resolve those?
It's just amazing to think that I would say I can't recall having sort of a disagreement or an argument of any sort in the 27 years. So I'm abundantly grateful for that. I guess it's mutual love and respect between a father and a son. So that foundation of breaking bread for so many years with my dad set that foundation. But have we had a difference of opinion? Absolutely. And so he's always allowed me to go with my gut feeling or my thoughts most of the time, and said, I'd rather you learn from your experience. Some of those times it worked in my favor and it worked. And sometimes I learned from my own experience. So he sort of gave me that freedom, unless it was something that he really was really strong about as an opinion, which may have happened 3 or 4 times. In that case, he said, let's make a case and share it with the team. So we have a team buy-in. If the team buy into what you're sharing, we go with it. If it not, and I said, absolutely, I'm happy to sort of put my case across the team and say, this is what I'm thinking, this is the risk, this is the pros and cons. So generally it was a team decision if it was that sensitive, but most of the time he said, Gautam, go with it, you learn from experience.
I love that. I really love that. It's inspiring. And I think it's also to do with your values. You know, you've hit the nail on the head there. It's about your values, your upbringing, your principles as a family that's led to, it's okay to have different opinions. That's healthy for a business. It's healthy for a father and son relationship to have a different view. But I think the key there is not getting to a stage where conflict escalates or there's underlying issues then that are not resolved. And I think you're a great case study over those 27 years of how you've stuck together. And what I also love is your father in his own right is also published books. Okay.
Yes.
You know, he's been a man who's been inspired with poems, you know, for most of his life. And he's co-authored a book with Jack Canfield.
Yes.
And what I love about this story, and you beat me to it because I'm working on the same thing with my eldest son, which is to have a father and son both publish books and both be speakers. And, you know, you're about to do that. I love that. I love the idea of a father and son in their own right have become authors and speakers. So congrats on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually, ironically, didn't even think of it that perspective. I guess the book publishing side of me is just coming to reality now, because a year ago was just a thought or an idea. So I'm grateful for my friends and family who've encouraged me to share my journey, share my story in the book format, and then also had the pleasure of speaking at speakers associations around building relationships and how important that is for everyone, be it a solopreneur or entrepreneur.
Yeah. So let me go a little bit faster. Is that okay? Maybe quick questions, short responses, leave the viewers with some tips here. Now, with the bookshop, your business model evolved over the years, yeah? So I'm wondering if you could give some tips to entrepreneurs right now, next gen members, on what to look out for when you're evolving your business model. You know, you went from a bookshop to customers coming to you to essentially taking the books to the market. Maybe you can explain how that worked, and then how did events come along, and then how did speakers come along, and maybe you could tell us briefly about the journey, but also what were the lessons and what are the tips around the evolution of a business model?
Fantastic. Thank you, Reg. Yeah, so from the bookshop of the business, which we started in '93, we did that for several years. And there were major conferences that took place in the Gulf region with speakers like Tom Peters, Philip Kotler, and numerous Stephen Covey, numerous other eminent speakers who came to the region. We would be displaying the books, audios, and videos at the back of the room, offering that. People are emotionally engaged at that time, listening to an author, an eminent speaker, and then they want to take away something tangible and get a signed book or a photograph. And that's where that emotional engagement between the authors, the learning, and then the books took place. We then said, and one thing I ask myself till today daily is, what new value can I bring to the business? What new value can I bring to my clients, to my partners, to those who I interact with? And I just sort of ask that as a daily question to myself and sometimes to the team. So my brain is always asking myself, what new value can I bring? And one fine day in year 2000 with my dad, that question popped up and he said, what's stopping us from bringing the authors of the best books for live events? Yes. And we said, how do we start? We realized there was a direct connect between the popularity of an author whose books are doing well to people aspiring to see that author. So in the year 2000, the books business turned into organizing public seminars. In those days with Bob Urichuk, who you know, and Ron Kaufman were the first speakers we worked with. Their books were doing well, and then we organized public events. That public event business ran for 10 years, and we realized that larger organizations then said, we want to bring these authors live for exclusive in-house events. So you immediately responded to that and then set up a speaker bureau management service. And the book side of the business sort of took care of itself, because the more successful your events were, the more inquiries you had from clients to book the speakers, and the more the book sold, because you were raising the popularity of a speaker or a theme or a topic that was already popular. Yes. So the books led to the event led to private events, and then it grew regionally. We said, okay, how do we scale up the business? And we said, okay, it's working in Dubai. How about Oman, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi, and India and Sri Lanka? And so that business of a bookstore evolved to different verticals in seminars and trainings as well, and then grew regionally. And that's sort of the 25-year journey from the bookstore, but grew because we kept asking ourselves, what new value can I add? What can I do differently to add even more value How are people learning? How is that evolving? And
So
obviously
can I
today,
ask you, Gautam, I love that, you've hosted yourselves as well as with clients thousands of events, yeah, over the
yes,
last 15 years. You've represented how many speakers now?
we worked over 50 speakers now.
50 speakers. And could you name, a few of them? You've worked with some real celebrity speakers.
We worked with Jack Canfield, Marshall Goldsmith, John Gray, the late Tony Buzan. We worked with many of these eminent speakers globally. Yeah.
Yeah. So congratulations there. So I wanted to ask you, with looking back now with what you shared with the business model, with what you know today, going back, if you were to do it all over again, what would you do differently?
I think the main thing that I do differently is what I'm finally doing today, is that as a family business, we've sort of built the business as just as entrepreneurs, which is great because entrepreneurs are calculated risk takers. We are enterprising. We are open to new ideas. We can make quick decisions. So that's some of the pluses of being an entrepreneur. And obviously, to some extent, you have a choice of how you spend your time. So there are lots of pluses in that sense. Having said that, I would say for me, where we've missed out and tried 2 or 3 times was about bringing some of the corporate structures into the SME, which I think is important. And, the processes, the systems, I think a lot of those structures, the HR side of things, at least a blend of some of the key components would have helped me scale up the business to be, let's say, even more sustainable, even stronger during challenging times. And today, as of today, ironically, today itself, we just signed an agreement with Great Place to Work, India, Sri Lanka, whereby we now have a corporate structure in the business starting this month. And we have access to working with leading companies all over the region. And sort of the corporate structure blended with the entrepreneurial structure would be something, if I could have started earlier, that would be one key change I would have liked to have had.
Right.
And last but not least, is to have built the succession planning part, to have had someone who could replace me to be able to run the business without me physically running it. So those 2 key components would have made the difference for me.
That's okay. We'll create the accelerated family MBA program for your daughter. that will happen. Okay. So having said that, let's look at it slightly differently. A couple of tips when it comes to working with great speakers. Okay, if anybody else is watching this is aspiring to become a public speaker one day, or they're already speaking but they want to be in that top 5% club around the world, what makes a great speaker? First of all, what's the ingredients?
Well, it's a great question. And I mean, first and foremost, I'd obviously use the personality traits of the speakers who are the leading speakers that we work with. And I try and understand what are the common traits between all these speakers. One thing for sure is each and every one of the leading speakers that we've worked with, they've got a book that's become a global best-selling book. So the book is, you're an author, which is seen as an authority in a specific niche area, be it customer service for Ron Kaufman, be it leadership and coaching for Marshall Goldsmith, using those 2 examples.
Yes.
And that book is definitely the foundation. That gives you the branding, it gives you the credibility, it makes you newsworthy of being interviewed. So you get great PR. And that's one. Secondly is great social media presence. How are you providing value real time on a consistent basis, whether it's they have great podcasts, great blogs, great websites, great ways to provide value, to educate, engage, and inspire their audience in their absence. So that between reading a book to between reading or consuming their content online, they become fans, or in Ken Blanchard's words, raving fans. There's an emotional connect. So that would be the fundamentals. I think there's an emotional connect that this author is impacting lives, impacting companies, and making a difference and adding value. And that, to me, is the key ingredient.
Yeah. So can I ask you the second part of that question then? What makes a good book?
What makes a good book?
Yeah.
Great.
You could have someone who's got 50 blank pages and they can say, look, I've got a book. So, we're talking about now blending the 2, having a great book and having a great speaker. So what makes a great book?
Good. I mean, I think I've applied many of those great principles with my book, and I share that as an example. So first and foremost, I have great testimonials by people who are influential or highly credible, whatever that industry may be in which you're writing your book. So you're writing a book on a specific domain, so you're being seen as an authority and an expert in a particular domain. In my case, it's building meaningful relationships. I've got Jack Canfield, Ron Kaufman, Marshall Goldsmith, Thinkers 50, endorsing the concept of breaking bread and that. So that gives you credibility. Then you have a great forward. Many of the books don't have a forward. You want a forward by someone who's, again, recognized and known, because a forward is like a world-class testimonial of the philosophy of what you're sharing in the book. You then want to share, your experiences. People want authentic, real experiences that you have done to apply the learnings that you're trying to inspire others to learn. And then to me, it's true stories. Nothing beats a great storyteller, but storytellers from true life experiences, because again, you inspire people by authenticity, because people can relate to those. So to me, those are some of the key ingredients of what makes a great book.
Love that. What a great story.
I think one of the key ones I wanted to make sure I add this is actionable ideas, because I don't want a book I read that makes me feel good, or attending an event that makes me feel good, I'm inspired. I want to be inspired to take action, something I can apply right there and then, and add even one idea. That book is going to be a great memory and going to make me feel gratitude towards reading that book.
And do you think this, like, the size of the book is relevant? I mean, it took me years to write this one, and 270 pages. But now I'm thinking, well, my next book I'm working on is just really short stories, maybe 24 short stories. Does it matter about how big the book is, how small the book is?
Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of research into that, because I saw a lot of the previous best-selling books may have been slightly thicker in nature. Now, we know that people's attention spans are shrinking and continue to shrink. Plus, the variety of options to consume content in the past, many years ago, it was primarily books. But now you've got audios, videos, podcasts, blogs. There's numerous ways. So to me, in fact, I think the book should be, I say 100, 150, max 200 pages. The font size should be definitely larger than the standard, in my opinion, and make it as easy a read as possible. I've heard many people don't actually read a lot of the books that they buy. And I definitely don't want that to happen with my book. So I definitely controlled my book to being just, I think, 140 pages, and the font size is reasonably large.
When you say large, are we talking what, 48 font size?
No, I mean, I've seen a lot of books the size 10 and 12, so mine may be 14 to 16.
Yeah, I'm only kidding.
But
research tells us that. Research tells us that most people will read a maximum of 21 pages of a book.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's the forward. So
if you look at a couple of the best-selling books. I mean, you got The Fish, Work Made Fun Gets Done, simple parable, but sold in millions. Yeah. Companies buy them in thousands. And Who Moved My
Cheese? Yeah, exactly.
Who Moved My Cheese and Well Done was another one. These three books are synonymous about the books that have sold. And again, companies are willing to invest in those and buy them to gift them, because they know that even people who don't normally read would be willing to consider reading a book of that size and nature.
Well, it's the same conversation I had with our friend Ali, where he's got his Ask Ali mini books. And I was shocked to find out that he's now sold 1.5 million copies of those books.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing? Just because most of the companies, thousands of employees at a time, have taken them as gifts.
Yes.
Corporations have taken them as gifts for their employees.
Right.
It's amazing. You're absolutely right. I mean, you've given me some ideas maybe of the next couple of books to publish. I think moving on to wrap up, first of all, for those of you watching still and you've survived until this part of the video, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, give us your comments. In the description below, you'll also get all the details on Gautam, the new book, Right Selection as a company, where to find him, what his organization is doing. So don't forget to go into the description area and get those details. And we're going to collaborate more in the future. I'm going to make sure that Gautam can join us as a speaker for some of our webinars in the future. So take note of that, and vice versa. And also we'll see if we can get our book to the India market as well through Gautam's connections and relationships, okay, to reach more people. Now tell us, in conclusion, Gautam, the future. this lockdown, this crisis has also led to becoming more innovative using technology. You're doing webinars now every week where you've got thousands of people joining you online for webinars.
Right.
Tell us about, what's happening there, what types of speakers, how long do these webinars run for, who's it for? Could you tell us about what's happening there?
Sure, thank you, Reg. And first and foremost, I'd like to share with the viewers that I've not been friends with digitalization and technology for a long time. So I am grateful during this lockdown that, if you're not, it's time now. If not now, then never, because you really need to embrace technology as a leader. We need to become digitally savvy. We need to become friends with digitalization. And I just went in the deep end and decided to host webinars, 6 to 8 weeks back. And now we've hosted over 12 webinars. I've moderated each of these webinars in different formats, find the right format that we're adding value. The webinar formats have been an hour, and we realize an hour can be short or long, but if you're engaging and you provide enough value. So we've made sure we sort of included content from the speaker. We've provided Q&A, we've done some polls, and we've shown a video and a PPT. So once you integrate that, so there's a level of variety of engagement strategies, including the hour, people are left appreciating it and wanting more, which is great. We've ensured the webinars today appeal to people in lockdown. Obviously, in lockdown, people have personal and professional challenges. So the personal side is we work with people who have anxiety, stress, depression, so that we realize there are a lot of people in solitude in these times globally. So we had a celebrity in that space who's gone through this, share her vulnerable stories of how she came out of these challenging times. Then you talk of health and nutrition. We've had an industry expert about what foods we should eat and how best we should make sure we keep healthy and ensure we have a good immune system, to how do we become a digital leader, how do we build virtual teams, so how do we lead with gratitude. So the variety of speakers has been varied to make sure we appeal to people personally and professionally. An interesting one is parenting in lockdown. We as professionals we've all known we have multiple hats, but we've had the pleasure and privilege of having a chance to leave home and go to work and disconnect from different roles we play. Here in lockdown, we've got to play all these roles in one confined space. It's a genuine challenge. So we've got an expert to come and share with you parenting in lockdown and how do you find that balance. So coming to that's the webinar model. Moving positively forward, we are in exploration stage, speaking to clients, speaking to each and every of our speakers and understanding in this new virtual world or the hybrid world, we expect it to be a blend between offline and online. How can we co-create, collaborate with our speakers and our customers to provide the value in the way they would like to receive it? So I think that's going to evolve and change. I may not have the answers today, but I'm very sure that we need to embrace change and include technology as a really omnipresent part of the way we provide learning. And there are lots of positives. Costs are going down to that. Transport, we can reach more people. And one example I may give is that we had a client that was going to do senior leadership with 20 senior leaders here in India. And now they're doing the same event in a future date, but now they're including all 200 global leaders at the same investment. So they're grateful that during a virtual solution, they're going to have more people benefit. And in a way, they look at that as a costed way to add value globally.
Yeah, and I like your idea. I think that's where it's going to go. It is about a hybrid model. It's a bit like the retail industry. If Amazon can sell things online, but then go and buy bricks and mortar businesses, for their back end and integrate it all, I'm sure the same thing's going to happen with events. There's going to be people who do want to be in a live environment. They want to network. They like the idea of huddling with people after obviously the coronavirus thing is over. And they like that. We're human beings. We need that. But equally, I get that there could be thousands of other people around the world that want to come in and get a glance of a keynote or a breakout session or a masterclass, but don't want to travel to that country.
Yes.
And it's exciting times, I think, of where this could go.
Absolutely.
And I wish you all the best with Right Selection. I wish you all the best with, I'll put it back up again as a screen share one more time. So I wish you all the best with Breaking Bread, with the e-version first and then the fully published hard copy and soft copy in the future. And again, all the details will be in the description area to connect with Gautam and Right Selection. So hopefully you can get a copy of this book soon. So on that note, I really want to thank you, Gautam. I think you're an inspiration to many. You are a true next-gen entrepreneur. You're part of a family business legacy. You know, there's only 30% of family businesses that get to second generation, and only 15% survive to the third generation. So hopefully in the next 7-10 years, if you could have another family member joining you, you know, we can keep this legacy going. And I'm excited to talk to you again, maybe in a few years' time, and we'll see how the hybrid model's doing. And hopefully Reg 3.0 and Gautam 3.0 can be interviewing each other. Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Reg, for inviting me to be on your show. And who knows, we may have to be able to do a show with both our children as they become authors as well. So
exactly. Well, stay safe in Mumbai, and we look forward to catching up again soon. And thank you, viewers, for watching another episode on our channel. Bye for now.
Thank you, Reg. Thank you.